let's start with the four games in 4 days. What is the moving around? Does it change your approach at all, or are you still going to approach the weekend like you thought?
Yeah, I think it basically just shifts where last night's game would have been to Monday. Logistically, there's some things we had to work through. And obviously, still got to pay attention to the weather, this weekend and how that impacts things. So, just excited to play.
Was Devin going to throw whenever?
Yeah, he was going to pitch yesterday.
So it'll go Monday?
Not necessarily. Yeah, it would just kind of go back to taking it one at a time.
Did he throw like a longer bullpen yesterday just to keep his arm close?
He definitely did what he needed to do yesterday to be prepared for the weekend.
And what was just kind of the final determination of not playing yesterday?
It's their field, and they deemed their field as not playable. And so once we decided we couldn't, or they told us that we couldn't play, we then had to look at the schedule and decide how do we make it work and what's best for us in the totality. And for me, I want to play all 56 games. Like, we put them on the schedule, we're going to try to play them. And so we talked through a few different options. Then we landed on playing on Monday because it kind of keeps it in the same window that it would have been, just maybe a day later. Did affect our travel a little bit, so we had to figure that part of it out, which we're in the process of just about completing. They said the field was unplayable, and so that was that.
So it wasn't the cold, it was more of the rain from the night before?
They literally just called me in the morning, and we were going to play, and then we looked at it at 10 o'clock. I got another text that, hey, give me a call, and then there was going to be another determination, and then there was another determination that the field wasn't playable, and that's it. That's not our home game.
4 games in, any things that you've seen that you think could carry over once the schedule picks up and conference play starts that you like?
I just think we're going to continue to find more out about our team. I did want to say, I'm very thankful to Purdue Fort Wayne. We got left in a bad situation with the cancellation in September, and we were about probably the first LSU team to open the season on a road in forever. That's where it was headed until they agreed to come here. So I forgot to mention that, but thankful to Coach Schreiber and them for getting down here and playing us. And then Tuesday we played well. There was an opening to jump on them quickly. We did, and that was that. I mean, it's been great that we've been able to get so many players in the game and get some of the newness of the season off of everybody. We still have a couple guys that obviously we need to pitch, but everybody's kind of got their first taste of the season, and it'll get harder, and it'll get harder with this weekend. It's got some talented players on this team.
What were the other possible variations for, if you guys were going to start on the road, what would have, are you willing to say what?
Oh, it doesn't matter now. No, it didn't even really get that far. They were kind of in a similar situation that we were as far as needing games, and we might have been the only 2 teams in the country at that late of juncture. But, I guess maybe it's me guessing that we would have had to join somebody else's series as a potential tournament, type thing. So, and like I said, I really respect the tradition here. The way things have been for a long time, there's some things I don't want to change. I want our uniforms to look like LSU baseball's uniforms have always looked. That's super important to me. If they've always played opening weekend here, and we have great fans, and that was an unbelievable crowd at 2 o'clock on a Friday. I always would love to play opening weekend here, So, we're trying, but you don't always have control over everything of that nature. The program we were going to play had a coaching change, and that coach called me up and said, I'm not starting my head coaching career at LSU. And I was like, hey, man, I've been there at Nevada, and having to make some of those decisions. And you always have to do what's best for your program. It put us in a situation where we had to adjust a little bit.
You're willing to say what school that was?
No, absolutely not.
You're starting the connection, your entire staff, I guess, just really attacking the zone here early. 3 walks, I think, total. Is that right?
Yeah, they've done a good job. Not a surprise. I thought the fall was pretty competitive, like both ways, offense and pitching. I would have given the upper hand to the pitchers the first 2 weekends of spring scrimmages, and you want it to be that way. And then I would have given it to the offense the last weekend, and you kind of want it to be that way too. But I think we've played a lot. Like we always have scrimmaged a lot under this kind of current format that we have now. They were excited to face different pitchers, face different hitters, and hopefully we get more results like that. But not a surprise. I mean, we had to be very aggressive in pitching recruiting. Again, that's like 18 or 19 pro pitchers over the last 2 seasons. And there's some historical things like I've talked about with SEC, draft picks off one team, SEC pitching draft pick record last year. So we had to be aggressive, and I'm glad we were. And, I think we evaluated well, and I think that Coach Yeski has done a really good job with these guys.
Is it a knock on wood that this might be the healthiest team you've had to start the season, where you're not having guys out?
Man, I've always looked at injuries as part of the thing, kind of thing. Like, so I don't know in answering that, and not avoiding the question at all, but we do everything we can to be as preventative, I guess, as you can, or as deliberate as trying to keep them healthy. Coach Yeski is really good and deliberate at the throwing, and I certainly have my finger on the pulse of what I think's best for guys and the long-term health and short-term readiness and all those things. But, Chris, we've talked about a lot with the strength conditioning. Isaac Trujillo he's arguably one of the most important people in our program, and he has an excellent track record. He was with me 5 years at Arizona and in his second year here, so he does a really good job.
Top of the lineup's been consistent with Chris, Derek, and Jared. What do you like about those 3?
Yeah, I always feel like applying pressure right from the start of the game is important. Like I've always liked a guy that can hit an extra base hit in the leadoff spot. Chris can do that. He's got to be one of the fastest players in the country, so that immediately applies pressure. The quality of bats that we've seen from Derek since the first pitch of the fall, I mean, that's going to be a fight, for the pitcher right off the bat. And then so you have that, and then you have Jared sitting there, with obviously his ability to hit and to hit with power. So I think it makes the first inning difficult, and that's a good thing. I think we scored in the first inning 3 of the 4 games so far, and I like that, because it's more than just the runs. It's like if the starter's 25, 30 pitches into his outing, 1 inning into it, like that's going to pay dividends as well.
How about Chris in the outfield?
Yeah, he's good. He's really good. And we don't really have a bad defensive outfielder per se. They all have athleticism and can cover ground, and he certainly sets a tone for that. SportsCenter top 10 thing that was cool. I mean, like, that's hard to get on. I mean, that's and I maybe didn't even realize how good a play it was till I saw it back, because it's just like goes up, you expect him to catch it.
Is that just instinct and speed kind of kicking in?
Yeah, he's got both. A lot of baseball, and somebody asked me a question relative to the infield defense after the game the other day of, like, they should be good. Like, I expect those 4 players that have played those 4 positions so far to be good because they've played a lot. I would say the same thing for Chris in center field.
When you have Chris, Derek, and Jake out there at the same time, have you ever had an outfield where all 3 guys could
Run
very
like
easily
that?
be center fielders?
Yeah, I don't know. At Arizona, I mean, it was the biggest field in baseball, like not college baseball. It's like 366 to the left field line, 410 in the left center gap, and 405 in the right center gap. So I know there was probably a few years where we tried to do that, but yeah, I think Coach Shaver needed a backup 4x100 relay team. The regular student body, those guys would have a chance.
I think Jared's leading the team with 5 walks.
Yeah.
Probably not surprising because you don't really want to pitch to him, but is he seeing the ball better this year?
I think he's doing great. We have a really good idea of what we're trying to get out of everything with him. And, I've mentioned this before, I really enjoy coaching him. And, we'll have had 3 years together by the time he gets drafted and is gone this year. And just the evolution of that has been really right on point. And he's a better hitter and player today than he's ever been. And I think it's just a solid understanding of what he's doing, why he's doing it, how he's doing it, and then the reps. And then we've, worked on some things since we've gotten back. And it all kind of blends together, whether he maybe even realizes it or not. He's getting a really good handle on it.
Last week we talked about all your meetings, and you said you're getting to see a lot of guys get some time. Has that changed now that you got a couple games behind you? Do you have more conversations?
I just think communication's important. We're kicking around things that we haven't done yet that still might open up our best team, and that's our job, and then it's also our job to communicate, those types of things as we go. But really, when I say communicate, it's get them prepared for what's coming down the pipe for them individually. And, again, the games have been kind of over before we've done this, so to speak. But our guys that have come in the game have been ready to play. We pinch hit, I think, McBall the other day, and, bam, single right off the bat. He's done that twice as an example of that. We pinch ran David Hogg, stole a base. Somebody made a play as soon as I put him in the game. So I think that's important, and then that allows your depth to come to life when they have the mental capacity to understand what you want them to do and then go execute it. Then it makes it look like the thing's put together really well.
Before Mick gets in here, you want to say something nice about him?
I love him. Yeah, he's awesome. He's a good player. I've told him several times, the only reason he's not an everyday player is because he's on this team, and he's been on the teams that he's been on here. And he's everything like I want our players to be, and he's getting better. And if he was an everyday player, the expectation of what we need to do as a team would not change. That's how much trust I have in him on the baseball side, but it's who I want our players to be. You're not going to find a better human being than McBall.
Ethan said he kind of had to adjust his swing last season because of the shoulder pain that he was sort of going through. Do you think that sort of affected him at all, and how much is help now that he can just, play normally?
Yeah, I thought he was productive. I don't even know what his statistics were. I do have great appreciation for him gutting out last year. We were kind of in no man's land, whether, to have the surgery right away or have it. He wasn't going to hurt it worse, but it didn't make it easier to play. You know what I mean? So we didn't have really good position player depth. So I'm proud of him for making the choice to play as he could, throughout the season, and he was a good contributor several times. And and then it's good for him to get it fixed. And then I thought he had a good fall. I thought he was definitely still working his way back in the fall, though. It wasn't 100%. And, he's kind of one of those X-factor guys on the team, and that could take us to another level. And I'm excited to get him more time and more at-bats.
Mick sat out as a medical redshirt last season. What was sort of the situation he was going through?
It was pretty. I'll let you guys talk to him about it, and he can divulge what he wants to and what doesn't. But it was pretty scary. I want to say it was the day we'd already made the decision we were going to redshirt him, and to preserve his eligibility, because I think he's a good player. He's played in all 4 games. He's going to play in a lot of games this year, and as a junior player next year, senior player the following year, that's a guy I'm excited to have in the program. Kind of maybe fits in the old Coach Bertman model, so to speak, but had a scary deal where his arm just ballooned up on him, and basically a collapsed lung type thing, and had to go to the hospital. Was in the hospital for a long time, had a lot of blood thinners, and handled it like a champ. And he couldn't hit for a while, because he couldn't get hit by a ball. He had to be off the blood thinners before that, and just really amazing. Wasn't even really ready to go till October, and so super proud of him. If everybody was exactly like him, the world would be a better place. We would be a better team, and I think that's just one story of the character and perseverance. I don't know that every guy that we have could go through that and be in the spot that he's in right now.
There's there some specific things you look for the second week of the season, or so you want to see?
Well, improvement, obviously across the board. I think you creep a little closer to SEC play each week that we go, and so the improvement becomes important. But you're trying to win the games too, and this is a team historically didn't land this way last year, but historically has done well once they get into conference play, and has been an NCAA tournament team, which is kind of the type of team like I target playing in the non-conference, because there's a lot of RPI benefit for it. Harder to predict now with the landscape, and you don't know, who everybody's scheduling. You know what I mean? And so, which luckily in the SEC we don't have to worry about that too much. I think 8 of our 10 opponents in league all swept last weekend, so that usually takes care of itself. But well coached, very well coached, and have had success. So we want to play well to win the games and improve, as we're going along.
The game's
Two more for Coach?
being over, like you said, almost from the start. How do you like the mindset of the team to stay competitive, to make quality at bats, all the things you want them to do regardless of the score?
Yeah, I think that's been spectacular. Really good. And usually early in the season, though, I don't get too overly excited about that because everybody's super engaged at the beginning. Now, if they continue that, that's a sign of a lot of maturity. But that's all they've been allowed so far, so that's great. I'm not going to anoint them as like something that they're, you don't know that. But I do like the maturity that I saw regardless of score. And, I think I don't like the word competition now because we're all on the same team, but guys know there's a lot of guys that can play. There's literally no drop off. And that's awesome. So if that elevates everybody, awesome, good for us. And it allows you, if there's adversity with injuries, okay, you move forward and feel pretty good about it. And so I do think that's been good, and I've been very pleased with that.
You mentioned the old Skip Bertman model and Nick kind of fitting that, but there's a lot of players who just aren't willing to do that. What do you think he trusted you guys to be willing to do that here? Well,
I think he's probably one of the most intelligent players on the team. He's in the honors college here, and I say that great background, and I've mentioned this several times. How lucky am I? When I talk about Josh Pearson, his parents, Mick Paul's got great parents, comes from a great family. I could go on and on, but it's the same type of situation where you have an intelligent person, hardworking, disciplined, bigger picture, of college baseball career, future with where they want to go in baseball, life, like just the ability to see all of those things and not make, emotional decisions or rash decisions, which young people do sometimes. I never worry about that, with him. And like I said, he's a good player too. And so those are all things that have value, here. So, lucky for us, he thinks that way.